Every enterprise already contains knowledge about what it wants to accomplish, how work is performed, what policies apply, and who has authority to decide. But that knowledge is fragmented across documents, systems, teams, and individual experience. Intent Forge turns those fragments into governed enterprise context. In this demonstration, we will follow one decision from ingestion through evidence and human validation into a connected enterprise intent model and a bounded release that people and AI can safely use. Intent Forge does not begin by asking an organization to model the entire enterprise. It begins with bounded consequential outcomes called value slices. Meridian Industrial Systems has 4 synthetic value slices at different lifecycle stages. Each slice connects the capabilities, processes, decisions, authority, systems, evidence, and measures required for one outcome. The elements are reused rather than recreated, so every governed slice contributes to the same enterprise intent model. In this walkthrough, we will follow the active non-standard quote-to-cache slice, but first we need to see where its evidence and candidate meaning came from. Intent Forge connects to governed enterprise repositories, ingests the relevant information in the documents provided, and records what it discovers and processes. This prototype does not perform a live ingestion. It shows representative results from completed synthetic runs. Here, Intent Forge discovered 146 artifacts, processed 135, extracted 284 candidate claims, and proposed 73 model elements. The stages remain deliberately distinct. Discovering a file is not understanding it. Extracting a claim is not approving it. Proposing a relationship is not publishing organizational truth. Ingestion proposes. Governance decides. Every processing run remains inspectable. This incremental run accessed Meridian's governed policy repository and processed commercial policy and authority records. We can see when it ran, what it discovered, what it processed, and what it held for review. The run completed successfully, but it also detected a material threshold conflict and a supersession exception. A complete run means that Intent Forge produced inspectable records. It does not mean that every extracted assertion is approved or safe to use. The most consequential file in this run is the current global discount policy. Intent Forge preserved the document's identity and harvested 2 candidate claims. One says that finance approval is required when a discount exceeds 20%. The other says that only the chief financial officer may publish a segment-specific delegation that changes the global threshold. The extraction confidence is high, and the document itself is approved. Neither fact makes the extracted interpretation automatically authoritative. Intent Forge also proposes the model elements and relationships these claims may support and identifies the value slices they may affect. This is the boundary between AI-assisted discovery and organizational governance. The system can propose meaning and impact, but it cannot silently decide what the enterprise intends. The policy is relevant to more than one value slice, and we will follow its impact on North American non-standard quote-to-cache. The workspace is organized around one measurable outcome: produce an executable non-standard customer agreement faster with higher first-pass quality and governed margin and risk boundaries. The slice makes accountability and scope explicit. It names the executive sponsor and accountable value leader, establishes current baselines and pilot targets, and shows where evidence, model coverage, validation, and publication readiness remain incomplete. Evidence becomes useful when it is interpreted in the context of a bounded business outcome. Inside the value slice, we can inspect the same policy as governed evidence. This is not a second copy of the document. It is the same source identity reached through another useful view. Intent Forge preserves ownership, approval state, version, effective date, repository location, integrity, readability, and supersession history. It also preserves the exact page, section, paragraph, and supporting passage behind each candidate claim. Provenance is not decorative metadata. It is how a reviewer determines whether an interpretation has a defensible basis, whether the evidence is current, and whether it applies within this value scope. The global policy appears clear until IntentForge compares it with the other active artifacts. The deal desk procedure says finance approval is required above 15%. The global policy says 20%. A widely followed regional memo says 25%. A retrieval system might simply return all three documents. A language model might select the most plausible answer. IntentForge preserves the disagreement, identifies the affected decision and process, and names the authority required to resolve it. The issue is material. The wrong interpretation could weaken a margin control or add unnecessary approval delay to the outcome we are trying to improve. Let's ask Clarity to explain why this is blocked.
This decision is blocked for one reason. 3 active sources prescribe different finance approval thresholds for the same class of quote. IntentForge has assembled the evidence and identified the required owner. But only Priya Nair, the delegated policy owner, can validate which interpretation may become governed context.
Before anyone decides, we can move from the conflict to a candidate claim and then to the exact supporting passage without losing the validation context. The decision is not based on a generated summary. It is based on inspectable evidence, lineage, scope, and authority. IntentForge has made the decision ready. It still has not made the decision. In this scripted demonstration, Priya Nair, the delegated policy owner, validates that finance approval is required above 20% unless a separately published segment-specific delegation applies. The resolution records the governed assertion, the authority, and the decision basis. It does not delete the 15 and 25% candidates. They remain part of the evidentiary and historical record. AI proposes. Authorized people govern. The validated threshold is not stored as an isolated answer. It participates in a connected enterprise intent model. We can follow the outcome through quote management capability, commercial review process, approval decision, governing policy, delegated authority, workflow system, evidence, and outcome measures. This context allows people, applications, and AI agents to understand not only what rule applies, but why it applies, where it applies, who controls it, and what business outcome it protects. Governed context creates value when it can be supplied safely to the consumers that need it. Publication is a bounded release, not a claim that the entire enterprise is complete. This package contains the value scope and outcome contract, approved or validated model assertions, decision and authority context, an evidence and provenance manifest, and measure definitions with telemetry bindings. Access is explicit. The consumers are the pilot participants, commercial approval workflow, quote, assistant, and revenue operations analytics. Other unresolved issues remain visible and may be excluded where required. With the demonstration blocker resolved, the bounded context package can now be published. Let's ask Clarity what changed after validation.
Validation cleared the discount policy blocker, allowing the governed 20% threshold to participate in the release. Other unresolved issues remain visible.
We began with a portfolio of consequential outcomes and a fragmented evidence landscape. We end with one governed decision embedded in one publishable value slice. The work is deliberately bounded, but the context is reusable. Every validated slice strengthens the enterprise model without requiring the organization to model everything before creating value. This is progressive completeness, one outcome at a time, one connected enterprise model over time. IntentForge turns fragmented organizational knowledge into governed context that people and AI can use with confidence.